What I've done is to weigh this 25 milliliter round bottom flask, and the weight of this is 26.918 grams. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just place this inside this beaker, and I'm going to take paper towel out. What I did was I took a piece of cotton, and with the aid of this other pipette, pushed the piece of cotton down to as far as I could get it. What that is going to do is serve as a cotton plug, because what I'm trying to do is to take this liquid, but I don't want the drying agent to come over. So if any does happen to come up during the transfer, it will get caught inside the cotton plug. And you may say, why don't you just filter this? Methylene chloride is so volatile that a lot of times when you filter it, it evaporates before it's all filtered, and then some of it may evaporate and you're losing some of the solid material when that happens. Depends on what surface it evaporates. And if we had a tremendous amount, that certainly could be an option, but we're not looking at, half a liter or anything like that to filter. And that is about as good as I can get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this round bottom flask and clamp it to a clamp. And you just want to make sure that that is a very tight fit. You don't want that falling off by any means. Now, if you notice, I have a beaker here of hot water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in. I'm not going to submerge it because I don't want this to boil over, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently tap the bottom, pull it out, and swirl. And I'll do that until most of this has evaporated. And then once it's mostly evaporated, and see how you can see the bubbles there, how it's bubbling? So what that means is that it's already starting to boil. This has a very low boiling point. If I were just to submerge it in there and leave it, it would just jump out of there like a geyser. So I'm just going to touch it, bring it out, swirl it, and those bubbles is that it's boiling. And notice I'm just barely touching it in there and how quickly it's boiling. One thing you don't want is for this to boil over, especially near the heating mantle. Fortunately, most of your halogenated alkanes are non-flammable. But if this were something like ether, I would probably have this at a lower temperature, just so that I wouldn't have a chance or reduce the chance of that boiling over. And you see how close it got to the top just by touching it in there. Another thing I should mention too is that whenever you're doing any type of heating material inside a round bottom flask, ideally you really don't want it more than half or 2/3 full. And as you notice, the volume is greatly reduced, so I can leave it in there longer. Not a tremendous distinct difference, but I'm not having to pull it straight out. Usually when the foaming subsides, That's kind of a good indication that you've gotten rid of all the solvent. I know it doesn't look like we have anything in there, but you can see the solid that's forming on the sides. And now, since we've pretty much gotten rid of the majority, there's a little bit of solvent in there. I'm just going to let it sit there for a little bit of time just to make sure we get all that solvent out as much as possible. Because what we want to do is, after this cools, we want to weigh it and see how much caffeine we actually were able to isolate. I don't know if you can see the solid that's in there. Again, I'm just going to let it sit in here maybe for half a minute or so. Alright, I think that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is just let this cool to room temp, and then I'm going to weigh it, and we'll come back with the weight.